On today's episode, SpaceX announces some layoffs, the Tesla Referral Program goes bye-bye, and explosions in the sky. Let's get ludicrous. Hello and welcome to Our Ludicrous Future. This is the podcast where we take a look at all the super cool tech that's changing our world today to make our future totally ludicrous. This is episode 17, and I am Joe Scott from the Answers with Joe YouTube channel. With me is Tim Dodd.
Hi, it's me, Tim Dodd, the everyday astronaut from the things that are on the internet. And then there's also Ben Solins.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Ben Solins from Teslanomics. How are we doing, fellas?
Pretty good.
Good. 17.
We
On the 17th. What?
I can't believe this.
We're almost old enough to vote. Not quite.
Hey guys, I went on my longest road trip ever. I know everyone hates that, like, we basically seem to start every episode off talking about our Teslas, but I drove out to Colorado, up to Breckenridge and back.
Oh, wow.
It was, which is over 1,000 miles each way, 1,600 kilometers each way. And it was great. It was honestly really, really good.
Is it still cold in that part of the world?
Yeah. It kind of went from like basically 30 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 degrees Celsius up to like 55, 60 in a couple times, like kind of around Denver. So I don't know, what is that, like 10 to 15 degrees Celsius. So it helped with, range wasn't too bad. We still are running snow tires on it. Luckily, there's superchargers about literally just around 100 miles, like constantly all the way through Nebraska, or maybe more like 150 or something. So we stopped about 5 times on the way out, 5 times on the way back. Nice and easy. It was actually a really enjoyable experience.
And did you get the cold weather icon thing on the battery ever, where it just tells you can't use the whole thing?
We never did, but we were definitely taking a pretty big penalty compared to our normal range. But on the way back, like, we had a tailwind. You can notice a big difference with the tailwind. We are only doing like 240 watt hours per mile, which is pretty fantastic, I think.
That's great. Yeah, that's below. So 250 is kind of the standard that I think they measure against.
And that's going 82 mile an hour as well.
That's amazing.
So, yeah. So we had quite a significant tailwind.
Did you track your efficiency with TesLab by chance?
No, I didn't. I haven't signed up for that.
Tim.
What about the elevation, though? I mean, coming back, you'd be going mostly like lower elevation, wouldn't you? Mostly downhill-ish?
A little bit, but I mean, it's stretched throughout. Like, it's like, it's like 1 mile up for 1,000 miles down. So it's such a low gradient that I don't know if the downhillness matters too much. But the thinner atmosphere in Colorado, I think, actually would take into effect. I would assume.
That isn't. So, okay. So just side note from TesLab again, I've looked at the data because I'm a part of the company. So that's the bias. But we have a data set that we can work with. And we have like over 1 million trips logged in there. And Colorado tends to have some of the best efficiency of any other area. And I think it has maybe to do with the atmosphere. I don't know, but
definitely
really favorable temperatures generally. Even when it's cold, it's not like Boston cold or something.
No.
So or even Iowa cold, but it's
very reasonable temperatures.
Yeah. So thin air might play a factor. Also,
I almost guarantee it's thin air. I guarantee thin air makes a huge. People that are commuting around Denver, they're 1 mile up, 1.6 kilometers in altitude. And I guarantee that makes a big difference. And the fun thing about an electric car is it doesn't take a performance penalty in atmosphere like a internal combustion engine. I used to, when we drive through the mountains, like on highways 76 and 70 or whatever, through the mountains, like normally you're like flooring it to get up the mountains and stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing like that. I mean, it doesn't take any hit, which is really weird. Even up at Breckenridge, which is over 10,000 feet in altitude, you're still cruising like it's absolutely nothing. It's pretty awesome, actually. That's a pretty nice advantage that I didn't really think too much of. And
yeah, that's interesting. I never thought about that.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah.
Good deal.
It doesn't impact me at 500 feet above sea level here in Dallas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same in Iowa.
So I did want to ask you this, like, being in Iowa, I'm sure it's way colder there than it is here. Like, you know, that little gauge where it turns green when it's regenerative, and you get those dots because it's too cold or whatever, and it's not actually able to charge up all the way. How much does that affect you there? Because like even here, even in the low 60s, I see that when I first get in my car, and I'm like, how does somebody when it's really like how much does it affect you when it's really cold? Like
it seems to be about 5 miles where it has to warm up the batteries enough to make it so they can handle regenerative braking. So it's normally the first like 5-10 minutes of driving are really bad efficiency because it can't regenerate, and it seems to be putting some electricity into warming the batteries. It appears. Does that seem correct, Ben, from what you've seen with your data?
You know, we don't have data on that. We don't have data on how long it would actually take to warm up the battery or when regenerative braking goes back into normal, I guess. I've not seen that. The data, unfortunately, you know, the API we use for Tesla is not like Tesla doesn't have an official API with documentation on this stuff. Right. So the way we collect it is using the publicly available ones, but there's not like a, you know, official way to grab that data. So so I don't know. That's an interesting question though. I mean, I see that also. If you ever charge fully, you'll get that, which makes total sense because like there's nowhere to put the added energy. So you know, but yeah, it's an interesting question. I'm not sure. We'd have to just do some probably testing, in actual individual testing of it to see.
Yeah. Sweet. But it was fun. It was a good trip. And it makes me a little bit sad that, you know, we have free supercharging, and it sounds like Tesla is getting, actually, that's something I'm probably going to back up on, by the way, because it's just, apparently I can get $5,000 back in cash, which I would never, ever recover, right? I mean, in
it would take years. Yeah.
So anyway, the referral program that got us to that free supercharging is what? It's
ending on February 1st. Ooh. And it was supposed to go till March.
Does that mean you're not going to get any more free Roadsters?
That's what that means. I don't know if I'm going to get any, honestly. Who knows if anyone will get them? I don't know.
You're singing a different tune lately. What is happening?
Well, you know, okay, so I did a video a month ago on this saying, really just looking at the numbers of if the referral program is even sustainable. And, you know, my basic summation or point was with a Model 3 with an average price of, let's say, $50,000 and a 20% margin, you're giving away about up to half of your profit per unit in the referral program to people. And while I know not everyone gets that, so it's not as widespread as it maybe sounds, that is still significant. And that just doesn't make sense for them, I don't think, in the long term. You know, if they did it for a short period, it would make sense. So just recently, there was a lot of kind of weird conversations happening, I think, behind the scenes where the 2 Roadster thing came up again. And then Bjorn Nyland, who has one of the, you know, original kind of Tesla tubers, posted a screenshot of his Tesla account with 2 Founder Series Roadsters in there. So there was a lot of question about like, okay, well, are we getting these? How come he has it, but none of us do? What's the big deal? You know, and so I think that maybe finally, I don't know if my video was a part of that or not, but clearly Tesla did some more digging into it. And Elon actually just tweeted last night that he's getting rid of that, that the actual referral program will end on February 1st. And if somebody does use it, they still get the 6 months of free charging, but the order must be placed before February 1st. Now, the thing that makes me think maybe, you know, the same sentiment and thought I had about whether or not this is sustainable financially made it way into their conversation is because he followed up that tweet by saying exactly that the reason it's ending is because it's adding too much cost to the cars, especially the Model 3. So, I mean, I think it makes sense. I'm actually not upset about it at all. I'm glad they're doing it. I think they could have maybe done it different ways, but my hunch is that finally they had to have that discussion about like, hey, what are we doing with all this? It seems to be more than maybe we thought it should be. And I'm sure, maybe in just a quick decision type mode, they're like, you know what, let's just kill it. Let's just get rid of the thing. Too much cost, too much hassle, too much whatever. On the other side, they have got a ton of free press out of this. I'm actually thinking about doing a video where I go find every YouTube video that mentions the referral program, adding up all those views and seeing how much that would have cost if they wanted to actually like pay for sponsored posts. Because, some of these bigger YouTubers get a lot of money for a video like that. And so I think it'd be, I think that there's a lot to really unpack here, but yeah, it's ending. I'm not super sad about it. I think it's probably the right call. If you guys are looking to get one, make sure to place your order before February 1st.
Yeah. So to everybody listening, let's just break down exactly what happened here. So you have Ben who got 2 Tesla Roadsters, and then he does a video talking about how the whole program just doesn't work. And then Elon sees it and is like, oh, we can't do this anymore. And now Ben's driving off with, one butt cheek in each Roadster and laughing at everybody because he got what he wanted.
Tying the 2 strings together on the steering wheels.
Yeah.
So that would be hilarious.
Putting a weighted mannequin in the one and turning on autopilot and driving the other one around.
Well, it's autopilot. It could just drive itself.
What you're suggesting could have been one timeline. There's probably alternate universes where other things may have happened. But one of the funny things about it is I'm not wholly believing I'll get one or either or of these Roadsters. I know it says that, but I'm still waiting on Powerwalls from over 2 years ago, going on 3 years now.
Wow.
So like from mid 2016, that program had Powerwalls in it. I earned the Powerwalls from them, and I'm no end in sight on that. So I don't fully expect to receive any of these prizes. If I do, incredible, great, and I'm thrilled for the opportunity, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of things that change after they kind of dig into it, because there's a lot of people getting a lot of Roadsters, man. And I just don't know if that was the intent originally,
I would be interested to see how much they profited off of that, because I mean, how many sales do they have to make before somebody gets a Roadster? And what does that add up to in terms of price? Now, the same argument can be made that those people are probably going to buy a Model 3 anyway.
Yeah.
And that the referral program is just kind of like,
right,
just giving away stuff.
And that's correct. However, in sales don't work like that, right? In the world of sales, somebody always gets credit for the sale, even if it was like a phone in, right? So I think that argument is kind of a typical one. But the question on how much would they have spent to get this many views anyways is a really interesting one. And if you were to look at that compared to GM's budget for advertising or something like that, I'm sure it's a tiny fraction. My guess is, again, that it just came down to management of it and how to fulfill it and blah, blah, blah. It turned out to be basically this, like a department that you had to have to run these things. And I just don't know if they have the time and energy to do that,
You know what would be a really interesting data set actually would be, remember when, the Chevy Bolt, the all EV version of like Chevy had like a 240 mile range Chevy Bolt that I believe is already being canceled, by the way.
No, the Bolt is surviving. The Volt is being canceled.
Volt.
The plug-in
which was
hybrid.
the plug-in hybrid.
Which people did love. There are a lot of people out there that say it's a great car and all that. So
very competitive to the plug-in Prius. It sounds like very comparable. Yeah. Yep. But I would be very curious, since the Bolt and the Model 3 both were kind of going through similar media storms at the same time. They're both kind of being revealed and starting to be reviewed around the same time. Looking up that one was that 2017, like end of summer, or early fall 2017, when people were actually starting to get their hands on both those cars. Look at the number of views and like influencers and car reviews, and actually see how many eyeballs were paying attention to those two cars, and see the disparity, because I guarantee the Model 3 had 10 times more eyeballs on it. From hype and from other influencers and, just all that type of stuff compared to the Bolt. And I'd be curious, because that is a tangible, that's valuable to anyone. I mean, eyeballs is where the eyeballs are, is where the money is. And if they didn't have to necessarily pay for that, I'd be very curious to see that, like, kind of how much attention each car garnered, I guess.
Right. Because it wasn't until June of 2017 that they added the Roadster to the program. So I think a lot of the stuff before then, people weren't doing it with the intent of, earning a Roadster. Right.
Yeah.
That's an interesting point. But, Tesla kind of has that lure. It has that product kind of lust that people have for things, kind of like Apple did years ago, with the old iPhones. It's like, so I don't know, like, I think that a lot of that is kind of organic because they make such great, compelling products, really. But the Bolt is funny. I think the Bolt won, like, it was either JD Power or Motor Trend, like, car of the year. And a lot of people were laughing. We're like, what? Are you kidding me? But the fact of the matter is, it is a great car, and it was available. You could actually buy it, unlike the Model 3. So it's one of those things.
I actually just saw my first one, like, up close and personal 2 days ago. Yeah. I had never even seen one, which is so weird, because I thought it was going to be pretty competitive. I wonder if you can get a cheap used one now. I don't think GM or Chevy
really put their full effort into marketing it and selling it. I did a review, a side-by-side review of a Model S and the Model and the Bolt at the time, because the 3 wasn't even close to being out yet. I thought it was, for what it is, I think it's great. It's not like the sexiest car. It doesn't have, a lot of the really advanced tech features like the Model 3 or any Tesla has, with like the navigation and the built-in maps and all that stuff. But if you've never driven an electric car before, I would not say that that's a bad choice. I would say that if you've never driven an electric car and you hop in that, you would not be disappointed. You would be probably pretty stoked on it. If you're coming from a Tesla, you're like, oh God, how could I deal with this? But that's a different perspective, right?
Right.
Yeah,
very
so
different leagues of cars.
I'm a fan of the Chevy Bolt. I think it's good. I wish they, sold more. They were more popular. Joe, to answer your question a little bit, here is this is the overall referral trend. If you guys are seeing this on the YouTubes. So back in December 2017, they had 9,465 referrals. As of December of 2018, so within a year, they had 43,000 referrals through the program. And this accounts for anyone that had 5 or more referrals. So there's more than this, but it's not a significant number, maybe 1,000 or 2,000 or something.
I'm glad to see that didn't grow exponentially. It seems to be pretty stable, linear, almost, pretty normal, really. I thought it was going to go like Model 3's got released and it goes and just ramps up, shooting upward, but it seems to be pretty normal.
Yeah, I think right linear. Around here, June of 18 is when you started to see it really started to kind of go off. And I think this is when more people started to get deliveries of their vehicles and all those kind of things, right? Because June, if you remember, was like a big month when they really started to kind of deliver these things. So I think that's just when the sheer volume of people grew that could refer folks. And so from there, it just really kind of took off. So if you were to equate this to 50 or 60 or, because this is S and X sales as well, if you were to equate this to like $50,000 or $60,000, like this is several $1 billion in sales that they've made through the program. And I think I have that on one of these here. Yeah. So $3 billion. If the average price overall of every vehicle included in the program, which you can assume actually a lot of them were S and X. So that's not an unfair price, I think. Yeah. You're looking at $3 billion in sales. So it to me, it's actually kind of surprising that they are getting rid of it. I think they could have not got rid of it, but changed the incentives in a way that was more in line with the intent of the program. But I'm actually kind of glad that they're cutting it, because it has got kind of out of hand, and anyone that's been had a Tesla for a long time, has gotten referrals, knows, you're going to wait forever for things. Sometimes the little stuff, luggage, jackets, that's easy. The bigger stuff, yeah, we'll see.
Would you consider a wall charger bigger stuff? Because I'm signed up for that.
Yep.
Really? Damn
And
it.
what about rims?
No, rims, they're pretty good about. And like the wall charger, yes.
Not the power wall, the wall charger.
Wall charger, you should be good. A lot of people have got those. The power walls, no. And that stems from the problem they've had at Gigafactory 2 in Buffalo with labor issues and things like that. So it's not without reason, but it is something that just unfortunately has been the case. So.
Mm-hmm. Maybe they can redirect whatever resources they're putting toward the referral program and put that into their customer service now. Because there's been a lot of complaining about that.
Yes, there has been. I do wonder how widespread that is out there, though, because it's one of those things. I'm not sure is that just garnering more attention because a few YouTubers have talked about it, or is that like a really widespread thing? Not sure.
I can only talk about my delivery experience, which up until I actually got the car was pretty, I don't want to say horrendous, but frustrating. Definitely.
The whole invoicing thing.
I haven't had to do any service on it yet, but anyway, I don't know.
Yeah.
Speaking of, actually, I'm going to be doing some service tomorrow, but I made an appointment on the app, which you can do now. You can make appointments, but that's for Minneapolis, which is over 3.5 hours away from me. I'm just going to call them like at the time and be like, hey, I live in Iowa. I just need some help over the phone. I just wanted to make sure I had a time slot, in their kind of appointment to be able to talk to a technician. Cause I've got weird things. I still think my lights are like backwards. Like if you open the door to get into the car, the dome lights shut off the second you close the door. And then the second you hit the brake, the dome lights turn on, which to me seems literally backwards, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like shouldn't the dome lights stay on and then kind of dim when you get ready to turn the car on?
And you messed with the settings on that?
I've looked for stuff and it's not showing up. Also, when I leave the car, the taillights are off now. And the taillights and headlights used to stay on. So I'm going to have them kind of look at that. And then also I want to see if they can send some like touch-up paint or something for the dings in our trunk. I think that's a good idea.
Is that from when the garage door hit it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if that's all you have from that garage door hitting it, that's not a bad thing. If you need to replace the trunk, that could be
We don't need to replace the trunk at all. Like it's barely noticeable. Teeny tiny little dents. I just mostly want to put some touch-up paint in there until we get like a lip spoiler from someone for free. Yeah. And just mostly so it doesn't rust too, in case, since you said it's steel and not aluminum, right?
I believe that should be steel. Correct. Yeah. It's more of like a typical car that's made from different grades of steel as well as aluminum.
Okay.
Yeah. Unlike the S and X, which I believe are 100% aluminum.
Yeah.
Which make it more difficult to work with.
So we'll see how an online appointment goes. I don't know if I did it right at all, but I just decided, screw it. I'll book a time so they don't give me the,
When I haven't tried it, when you go to book through the app, does it show you available times or do you just put in okay, cool.
It shows you available times and locations even. So we could have chosen other places. Yeah. Because we were actually trying to do it. So
that's
while
on
we're
the app on your phone.
Yeah. Scheduling appointments like at the bottom now.
Yeah. One thing that I thought was interesting about that was, this happened to me coincidentally one time, but I wasn't sure if it was intentional or not. So if you were to call, let's say, Samsung or Apple or whomever to fix an issue with your phone, the first question you'll often get is, are you on the latest software? Have you updated? Right? Even if you have like a Mac laptop or something, you want to call in, first question, what version of the OS are you running? Have you updated? If the answer is you're not on the latest, first go do that. I wonder if this would make sense where, since so many things with the Tesla get fixed via software, like your problem probably, is that when you call in or schedule an appointment, that they automatically check to see what version you're on. And if you're not on the latest version, just push it to you.
Right.
That would make a lot of sense to me. Of course, we would all abuse the heck out of that and just be like, I want the latest one. But I don't know if that's a bad thing. I really don't. Like people that, like there are definitely a lot of people that would not abuse it in that way. So people that are probably good beta testers. So I mean, I would encourage them if they ever hear this to do that, because to me, I think that would be an easy thing that could actually help people get the things fixed sooner, reduce the amount of stress on their system, and help test new software. I mean, it's just a win all around. You know?
Are you saying, why don't they just?
No, I'm saying they should.
I think I heard a why don't they just, and that means it's time to play Why Don't They Just? Is it time?
Let's do it.
Well, since you announced it, I guess we will.
We'll have to have a little sting for that. Ding, 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 ding.
I was going to say, like, I want to make it so that anytime, oh, hi. Is this right? Are you guys seeing the right thing?
Yeah, I'm seeing a tweet.
Yeah, that's
Drew
what I wanted.
Shiba?
Is this the real Joe Scott or is this
Shiba?
the other Joe Scott?
This apparently I had
That's
an
the real
issue.
one.
Yeah, this is the good.
The other one's fake.
This is the good one. So of course our friend Joe Scott, who's that guy?
And Answers with Joe.
At Answers with Joe.
He just followed me on Twitter. I'm super excited.
Dude, yes, totally. Like you had posted something and I'm like looking, I was like, how am I not following him?
Dang.
That's ridiculous.
I was like,
And
oh my god.
Congrats. But Joe did
I know
the
that
due
guy.
diligence of asking his Twitterverse at Answers with Joe. Anybody have a why don't they just for tomorrow's podcast? And I like this one from Drew Shawaga at Shawaga Drew. And he says, why doesn't Elon Musk just create a rocket launch system? Actually, rocket latch system, but
Launch.
launch system with Hyperloop technology. Get the rocket up to crazy speeds before even lighting the engine, then break the vacuum seal from the back of the tunnel for extra thrust. That is a legitimate question. Yeah. Yeah, I want to hear you guys' thoughts. Why don't they just do that, guys?
So it's underground, right? If I'm
Or above ground.
following. Well, it's a hyperloop. So you're in a pressurized tunnel, vacuum sealed, or
Vacuum sealed.
depressurized.
Depressurized.
Yep. The thing is going 700 miles an hour, whatever. And you have to shoot it up because if you just went straight, it probably wouldn't be good. And then from there, as soon as you pop the hatch, the pressurization that happens should add an extra thrust. Is that what he's saying?
He's saying from the back end.
Okay, so you pop the hatch from behind wherever the rocket is going, and then it shoots out, and then what? The boosters would have to start mid-air.
Then fire up the rocket engine. Yep.
It sounds. I mean, I just from a observer standpoint, it sounds like there wouldn't be enough speed for it to really kind of reach a high enough altitude to have then time to fire up the boosters. Not to mention that the thing is probably heavy as sin when it's filled with fuel and volatile. And so traveling that fast at sea level probably is dangerous anyways. I don't know. Those are my
So how
thoughts.
fast do commercial airplanes fly? Is it like 300-ish miles an hour?
About 550 mile an
500?
hour. 530. Pretty fast. Over 500 mile an hour normally.
Well, I know they were talking about Hyperloop going at around 1,000. So if you were traveling 1,000 miles an hour in kilometers for whatever, I don't care.
1,600 kilometers an hour.
There you go, whatever. If you were going fast, if you were going 1,000 miles an hour and you hit surface level air pressure, like you wouldn't burn up like you're in the atmosphere or something, but wouldn't that be a significant wall
It would slow
in
you down,
terms
right?
of momentum?
Mm-hmm.
So you would have to actually like get it up high enough in this Hyperloop up into the air to be above high density air flow or whatever. And then that sounds like a massive,
Just do it in
massive project.
Colorado.
Well, just put it on Mount Everest.
See, finally we can develop that real estate. I've been talking about this for years.
Yeah. Just get all the dead bodies off of it and you can.
Don't worry, global warming, it'll probably end up melting off here soon and you'll reveal just hordes of
right.
Oh, okay.
death,
Let's not go
unfortunately.
there. Let's not go there.
So there's a few moving parts here, and Joey kind of started to talk about it with an airplane. That is a valid launch system. We currently have the Pegasus, which is, I believe it's a 707 I'm gonna have a bunch of people mad at me that I don't know exactly which jetliner releases the Pegasus rocket, or either it's one of those. What's that Triton rocket? It's like or Triton airplane where it's got 3 engines. It's like the 7 something triple.
You're asking us?
I don't know. Anyway, it's one of those.
Do you not know why you're on this podcast? I mean, come on.
I'm not the airplane guy. Jeez.
Northrop Grumman Orbital Sciences Corporation for Pegasus.
Yeah, well, it's now actually part of Northrop Grumman's Orbital Sciences, the Pegasus. What does that thing launch on? But then there's also Virgin Orbital is launching. They'll be launching a rocket off of the wing of a 747. And of course, we have like Paul Allen's Stratolauncher, which is the biggest jetliner ever built in wingspan and I think total gross mass. There's the. So what jet is this? This is a cool jet. It's a really cool jet. I believe it's Lockheed Martin. No, but the type of jet. I believe it's a Lockheed. What did Lockheed make that had that like the triple engine? People are screaming into their computers or their cars right now.
Well, what I love is it's got windows like it's a commercial aircraft and like people are on there while they're launching this missile from below.
That's basically what it is. So even with an air launcher, one of the scariest things is you have to drop basically a giant bomb thing full of pressurized fuel and propellant. Here we go. Not a B-52. Why did it say B-52? Okay, keep going down.
Yeah,
oh, there we go. An L-1011. That's what it's called.
Okay.
L-1011.
Stargazer. Yep.
Okay, so anyway, so you drop this pressurized rocket from the belly of your spacecraft or your aircraft, and then you have to have it light up and perform its normal thing. Otherwise, you just dropped a bomb. Like that's the reality of it. And look at how big of an airplane it takes to launch a pretty small little rocket.
Right.
I mean, even a 747, which is a decent amount, it's one of the biggest, one of the biggest operational jetliners, can only launch a pretty small rocket, like a rocket not much bigger than, say, a Falcon 1. And what happens here, and even the biggest one, the Stratolauncher, will launch what they could have launched like very light, medium class rocket, like a Falcon 5 was originally proposed for it. So it takes a huge jetliner to launch even a medium class vehicle. And what you end up getting out of it is a little bit of altitude. You get up to 35, 40,000 feet. So 10 kilometers. And then you gain, like Joe said, about 500 miles an hour, about 800 what is that? Yeah, 800 kilometers an hour.
884.
So you gain a little bit, but that's like, we're talking about, 500 mile an hour is like not even, it's hardly 1/20th. It's like 3% or something, or 5% of orbital velocity. So you're not gaining much speed. You're barely gaining any altitude. And now we can take this, and this is the same thing. Now you just made a tunnel with a vacuum in it. Yeah. And as soon as you pop that hatch, even if that hatch is super high up, say 100, now you're building the world's tallest tower, essentially. How tall is the Burj Khalifa? Like 2,000 or 3,000 feet or something, like 1,000 meters tall, maybe at most.
That's still not even that high for a rocket.
No, nothing. And like, think about how difficult it would be to make something high enough where it actually, has a significant effect. And especially as soon as you do open up that hatch, if you have a pressurized tunnel at the top, if you have a pressure differential, you're going to have pressure flowing in back at the vehicle already, like literally slowing you back down. And you have all these moving parts. You can't launch the rocket in there, all these things, and then you have to let go. It just becomes, was that really worth it over making the rocket have a like 2% longer tank?
Yeah.
And so it's like, why don't they just make the rocket a little bigger instead of, why don't you just make this massive giant vacuum tunnel that goes 10,000 kilometers in altitude and costs $148,000 to suck all the air out, and then make sure that the rocket does all these, like, there's all these other things. Don't forget, when rockets launch, they ignite and they hold on to the rocket and make sure that everything is good to go before they let go normally.
Yeah.
And that's a good idea in my opinion. Like that's still
right.
How many times has SpaceX and even the Delta IV Heavy recently lit an engine and then gone, oh no, not today. You can't really do that when you're flinging it out.
You're already out in the, yeah. And you would have to be, so we're talking about 1,000 miles an hour, whatever, what they talked about Hyperloop. I would be curious if somebody, listening has the time and care to do the math on it. But at what angle, this is like an old trigonometry problem or something, but like at what angle would something that heavy have to be at, and how far, like 1,000 miles an hour is not enough, I guess is my point. Like for it to actually get high enough to where it doesn't just like fly out of this thing and then hit the ground. Like it would have to be traveling at like way faster. That's my guess. Somebody could do the math on it, but
it's
like
just
your point,
its ballistic trajectory. It's going to follow its ballistic trajectory. It would, no matter what, fall back to the ground after reaching its peak. So once it hits its apogee, its highest point, that's all based on how fast it's going and at what altitude. So if it leaves the tunnel at say 1,000 meters, and then it's going say 1,000 kilometers an hour, that's pretty darn fast. It still would need a light engine, and you didn't gain that much.
Right. It's
Period.
Probably way harder than just like you said, doing it how they kind of currently do it.
Yeah, make the tanks a tiny bit bigger. Like
That's
people.
A good one. I like that one.
I think people get obsessed with the idea of like more. Like, what can't look at how big rockets are. What if, why don't we just like launch it up half of the way and do all these things? And it turns out like in order to carry say a Saturn V up high enough, think about how big of a jetliner that would be. It'd be like
biggest one ever.
Insanely big. And now you just made a super complicated system that really didn't net you that much more than just making it a little bit bigger.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't help you really at all. So.
Yeah.
I get people asking about railguns all the time, about building a giant railgun. And I will confess, I don't really know what that technology is exactly. But I guess it kind of is along the same lines of what we're talking about here with like a Hyperloop, but it's like a magnetic levitation kind of thing where you get up to a certain speed and then you just use that momentum. But the same rules apply there.
Exactly. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, a railgun is launched like there's not really a vacuum. They just use an insane amount of magnetic power to huck a projectile. And what's weird, this is still hard for me to understand, but the kinetic energy behind a thing like that can be like unbelievable. For some reason, I have a hard time picturing, like when I think of a bomb or like a missile, I think of like the explosion when it hits, like having some kind of explosion on it. And that's cool and all, but actually like literally just having a giant mass, say something that's like 2 tons or something, flinging it crazy fast has so much energy too. When it impacts something, it just turns it into dust. And that's weird. It seems to me like it just seems like you put a hole in it, but no, it messes stuff up.
Because
that's why
a greater
space junk
force.
is so scary.
Yeah. What were we gonna say, Ben? Or what were you saying?
Sorry.
It's because there's more than just the object itself. It's the force and the energy that's coming with it and how it gets dispersed when it hits the thing and all that,
Joe, you should definitely do a video on railguns because it is a fascinating technology that we're getting pretty far along on it. It makes a lot of sense for something like a battleship where they don't have to, where they could recharge and things like that. You don't have to carry nearly as much propulsives. And things on board, they can basically just like have a few hunks of metal basically and load it up and fire all day long. And it's pretty cool. And we're getting there. Like I think it's to the point where it is actually valid and used in operation now, I think.
Interesting. Have you ever covered space elevators on your
I have not.
channel?
I do get requests for that quite a bit too.
Yeah. I mean, you're more the rocket side of things, but, that's a big why don't they just that I get all the time.
Yeah.
Of course, I covered it a long time ago in a video, but talk about a super project or a mega project to build something like that. I mean, you're basically creating
like
another moon.
Literal elevator that goes to space.
Yeah. Yeah.
That sounds like the dumbest idea I've ever heard.
Well, if it could be built, then you could put anything up in space without even having to. It would just literally be up and down. But but to do that, you would have to have such a huge counterweight so far away I almost wonder if it would even like mess up the Earth's rotation or something. Like it would like people were even talking about like getting an asteroid and making that the other side of it. And then you have to have the cables have to be so strong that, you know,
Crazy
nothing could ever
strong.
go wrong. And
Yeah, I mean, and what happens when I fly a plane into it because I want to cause damage? I mean,
well, I mean, that's another argument that some people have made. It would be a huge target for a terrorist attack if you want. I mean, like,
absolutely.
all you have to do is blow up one bomb and you screw the whole thing up. You know,
it's almost like in addition to the "Why don't they just" segment, we need the like "What could go wrong" segment. You know, like,
Let's do space elevators in a future. Why don't they just? I think that's a good one to talk about because otherwise we could go down this rabbit hole for another 20 minutes just talking about space elevators. So if you guys want to hear space elevator talk as a why don't they just, let us know. Hit us up on Twitter. We're at Answers with Joe.
And I will recommend, I mean, yeah, I did cover that way back when on my channel, but Isaac Arthur's talked about it quite a bit on his channel, like super in depth, and talks about the physics behind it and everything. So I can recommend people go there too.
Yeah, but be sure, guys, hit us up on Twitter. At Answers with Joe is Joe. At Erday Astronaut, ERDAY, because every day is too long. And at Ben Solins, that's SULLINS. So yeah, hit us up on Twitter, guys, and let us know why don't they just, and hashtag it why don't they just, and we'll find them. And yeah, maybe it'll be on the show. So thanks, Drew Shawaga, for that's a perfect one. I love that one. I definitely need to make some videos about that. That's such a good topic of discussion. So
yeah, thanks. Yeah. And if they ever did build some kind of space elevator, then SpaceX would probably have a whole bunch of layoffs.
Oh, I see what you did there.
See what I did there?
I see what you did there.
So
they don't know what I just did. They don't know how brilliant what I just did was. It was a topic we were going to cover. That was a segue.
Back to the ASMR stuff.
Asedue, or however you spell it. Sugoi. So here we are. Unfortunately, we had some bad news about a week ago for about 10% of SpaceX's workforce. They lost 577 positions at SpaceX. And of course, I'm going to start off by saying, if you are one of those people that lost your job, of course, this is bad news. And I'm terribly sorry that you lost your job. I mean, that's not good. You, alongside with half, or a good portion of our federal labor, are having a very difficult winter right now. So my thoughts are out to you. I guarantee, though, on your resume, have worked at SpaceX, I think you'll be very hotly recruited. I know there's a lot of rocket companies and aerospace, especially in California, that would be very, very excited to recruit you. So go reach out to, I know Rocket Lab's hiring like a stink. They're probably sitting there cheering like, yes, we just had 577 SpaceX employees lose their jobs. We better swoop them up. I'll bet they're very excited. Their biggest short right now. Like the biggest thing holding back Rocket Lab is actually recruiting. So go talk to those guys if you just lost your job. They're fantastic. I really like them. So, but that being said, again, I'm sorry that you lost your job. This seems like a negative thing. I mean, losing jobs is never a good thing, especially almost 10% of your labor force. And we have here on screen on YouTube, if you're watching, otherwise I'll read it out to you. 30% of those layoffs were technicians, which are in the world of aerospace. A technician is typically someone that literally puts the vehicles together. And then 16% were engineers. Machinists were 6%, specialists 5.7%, inspector 5.6%, almost 5% of their managers, 4.7% of their welders, 4.5 coordinators, 2.4 tool makers, 2.3 planners, 12 or 2.1. So basically we're getting down to individual numbers. So I'll just say 12 supervisors got laid off, 9 operators, 8 analysts, 7 programmers, 6 cooks, 5 designers, 5 benders, 4 schedulers. Yeah, bender. And then, and cooks and handlers and others.
Someone needs to tell me what a bender is.
It's Futurama reference.
Yeah, I know, right?
Somebody that bends things.
Yes, I'm assuming it's probably literally bending the tanks. I'm guessing the people that roll tanks and bend piping.
Okay.
There's a lot of hard lines in rockets, and a lot of them are manually bent. using like jigs and stuff. It's pretty cool. So I don't know which bender that talks about, if it's like the tank rolly bendies or the people bending pipes. But so, and then you can see here, by the way, Business Insider did a fantastic job with some really good graphics here. The biggest things were structures, propulsion, composites, CNC machines, and senior were like the kind of the biggest, and production are kind of the biggest orbs. Again, if you're listening to this, there's a really, we'll link to it in the description, but Business Insider has a really, really good article that shows what these layoffs were mostly based in. And now we get into kind of what's going on? Is this really bad news? And like, is this bad news for SpaceX? Is SpaceX failing? What's really going on here? And the short end of this, the answer is they're changing over to a new vehicle. The Falcon 9 production is going down as they're developing, they're basically done, engineering and developing the Falcon 9. That's slowed down to basically a halt now that they're in a Block 5 with essentially a freeze. They're probably getting close to hopefully wrapping up all their Block 5 production potentially ever. Potentially in the next year or two, they may never make another Falcon 9 again because they'll have a fleet that can service. I know like the CRS-16 failure probably made them go, oh no, we got to make another one now. And to them, that would be like a big shock. And back in the day, it's like, no, you just make however many rockets you have customers for. But now they're going like, oh no, we were planning to reuse this X number of times. And so the short answer is there's a chance that some of these engineers engineered themselves out of a job almost. You did such an awesome job making a truly reusable rocket that now they don't need as many engineers on that program. I'm sure a lot of them are starting to work on Starship and Super Heavy. But the big one is propulsion. So they had a lot of propulsion engineers on the Merlin engine, and they were producing just a crap ton of Merlin engines. And now they're switching over to Raptor. And I'm guessing, again, a lot of that development's probably pretty far along, and they're probably having to strip back a little bit. Same with they switched over. They're no longer needing composite engineers and composite experts like they thought they were going to when they were Starship and Super Heavy were going to be made out of a composite instead of stainless steel. Mm-hmm. So a lot of this stuff is actually kind of antiquated almost, and they're probably just looking to strip down and focus less on things that were related to Dragon program. And, now that's fully developed for Dragon 2, Block 5. Now that's fully developed, and just focus on Starship and Super Heavy. And although it's a much, much, much bigger project, like it's the biggest rocket ever made. It's not yet in production, full stream production. It's in a pretty tight engineering state right now. I'm just guessing that they were looking and they probably, I think they've got some pressure from some investors to lean up a little bit to start.
I've got a theory that parlays off of that, in that maybe they're looking to go public, and this will make their finances look even better to potential, IPO clients.
Elon has said over and over and over and over that he would never take SpaceX public.
Well,
especially
he didn't
because
say
of
never.
what
He said not until Mars was secured.
Right.
Not until the Mars mission was secured. Maybe they're there. Maybe they're there.
Remember how much he hated Tesla being public? Can you imagine a rocket company being public?
No, I 100% agree with that. He also said supercharging would be free for everyone forever. So, and we know how that worked out, right? I don't know. From a non-rocket guy's perspective, looking at it, I'm going, this is what you do when you want to go public. You need to tighten things up, trim the fat justification, or like justly so. From a company standpoint, like you just mentioned, a lot of those things are probably valid reasons. But from the other side, I mean, this is common. This is how it goes. So I'm not saying that's what's happening or I have any actual knowledge of that, but that was my first thought when I saw this, was like, okay, IPO coming.
Well, one thing I did hear is that, and Tim, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but that they are looking at doing another round of funding and raising about 500 million or so in not going public, but just in private investments. Sure. And so for that reason, they're kind of slimming down and saying, hey, look, we actually have a good profit here. This is a good investment. And,
right.
It's sort of a play for that direction.
Yeah. I mean, in general, running a business, I think this is just part of running a business, unfortunately, is making sure you're not wasting, money on on things that are redundant or overlapping and all that stuff. They hired like you wouldn't believe for the past like 2 years. I mean, they just were sweeping up people left and right. And I'm sure at some point I noticed normally at the end of their live streams, they'd always say like, hey, we're hiring if you want to join our team. And they stopped doing that. I don't remember when, but I remember even thinking like, normally they would say that at the end. And I think probably 2 or 3 months now, they haven't been saying that. So I just think they're kind of just, tweaking the system, trying to make a lean, tight profit machine at this point and making sure that they're secure to make a really big investment in a brand new architecture for a massive, massive rocket that plans to go to Mars. Yeah. I mean,
unfortunately, this is just part of business, like you were kind of pointing out, right? Like over time, this is. I think it all started with Reagan and the air traffic controllers back in '81, I think it was. But it's a weird, time we live in. Like for me, this was a big reason why I left my full-time job, is because I wanted to have more control over my own situation. So I don't know if anyone that is in that situation now, like. I would just, my recommendation to anyone would be explore your options, right? Because maybe working at another company, if this was jarring in damaging and whatever, like you didn't, enjoy being laid off, who would, there are other ways to kind of secure your own freedom. And so, not that we were a business show, but I always recommend people look at more entrepreneurial paths. And, like I know getting laid off from MCI when I was working there set me on an amazing path in my career, so you can turn these things around. So, hopefully that's somewhat of encouraging for folks out there if they were affected by this.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's people that are sitting there going, but so-and-so still has their job. Like, was I a worse employee? Like, I'm sure there's probably some bitter feelings and things like that. But I think at this scale of things, it's literally like, it's not a personality or performance. It's probably literally just like that one, just looking at like the hard numbers on things, and probably try not to take it too personally. If you loved your job, try to.
It was all based off a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
I do wonder if there's damage control and how that goes. So quick side note. One thing that set me on an amazing path in my career when I was working in data was when we had a layoff at a company called ICE, kind of ironically. It was International Cruise and Excursions, if anyone's interested, in Phoenix. We had a layoff, and I was doing data stuff, building reports, building data tools for the team. And they did a layoff of some people that I saw as absolutely indispensable to the company. And it opened up my eyes. I was like, holy crap, if they can fire those guys for whatever kind of reason they make up, I don't care, then I am just like, I'm nobody, right? They can just push me aside anytime I upset them. And so I just said, okay, you know what? Let me just, even though I was still employed, I wasn't affected by it. Let me just see what's out there. 2 20-minute conversations later, I had a job offer for triple the amount of money I was making. Because I did not understand the value that I was actually bringing to the company, or how valued those skills I had developed over time were in the marketplace. And I went to my boss and I said, hey, I don't want to leave, but because of the layoff, I got a little spooked, as you could imagine. Here's what happened. He said, take it. He said, go for it. He said, I would love to keep you. You are absolutely valued. I would happy to give you a raise. It's nowhere near that. Go for it. And that led me on this whole path of understanding that companies were lucky to have me. I wasn't lucky to have a job. And I think a lot of companies, unfortunately, don't actually think or treat people that way. But when an employee does, I'll tell you what, you as an employee, as a contributor, with the mindset of like, no, you guys are lucky to have me here. I am so valuable. You have no idea. And whether or not that's true or not, but having that mindset, you speak the truth, and you don't have a bubble, and you're not afraid to say things that people may not like or disagree with. And I'll tell you what, when you're right and you say things that are honest, people take notice of that. And I guarantee a lot of my success in my career was based on my lack of fear of getting fired. So, again, if somebody's in the situation affected by this, take stock and know how valuable you are. And whether you go an entrepreneur route or a new company, know that you are the thing that is of value, not the company, not the job. Companies come and go, but you and what you bring are invaluable to a company. So make sure that, I think like if you do that, you'll be on a good path. So.
Yeah. Well, no, I agree with what Tim was saying about like, if you have SpaceX on your resume, I don't know the rocket market, but I can imagine you have, pretty much free reign to get a job. But kind of, piggybacking on what Ben was just saying, like, and I don't want to go down too much of a rabbit hole here, but yeah, that's been exactly my experience. Cause I worked for 12 years in a newspaper. We all know what's happening to newspapers. I went through so many different layoffs and somehow got through all of them. But what I started doing for the reasons you just said, like I was spooked, like every 6 months they were laying people off. I was like, I can't, just sit here and wait for the axe to fall.
Right.
And I started doing things on the side. I started doing the YouTube channel. I started doing a little small business and
comedy.
And well, and that really paid off. But no, I started doing things on the side and just like you were just saying, like every time a layoff would come up, I was just, of course, I didn't want to lose my job because I wasn't making as much on the outside thing, but I could always go ramp that up if I needed to. I had some safety net. And I think my attitude was just maybe a little bit better than other people's. And like you said, I was kind of like unafraid to kind of say what I thought. And that's almost like it comes across as confidence. I have no confidence, by the way, but it came across as confidence. And I think that helped me get through a lot of those layoffs. And when I wound up leaving, I left of my own accord. And sure enough, like 6 months later, my entire department was laid off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like the entire department. Not because I wasn't there. I mean, I'm not that egotistical, but
that was it.
But actually,
after Joe left.
yeah, I left and 6 months later, the whole place folded. No, but actually one person that did survive that purge, and is a good friend of mine, just last week did finally get laid off. And it's a horrible situation for him because he's got cancer, and being without insurance is basically like a death sentence for him. So we're hoping he gets something soon. He's a great. If anybody needs a designer, a graphic designer, he's an amazing graphic designer. So
well, keep us in the loop. But if he ends up like, if it's a really hard time, maybe our audience, we can help make sure that he can afford to make it through treatments and stuff, because that stuff can get scary. I mean, if you don't have insurance, you're talking about $100,000 for treatment, cancer treatment.
Yeah,
you end up filing bankruptcy. I've had a lot of friends that have went through it, but there's even kind of a class of bankruptcy for that, I think.
Like a medical bankruptcy?
Really? Yeah, it's like a medical thing where you basically just write off that debt, but the rest of your finances are okay. But bottom line, none of that stuff matters if you don't make it through, right? So,
right, exactly.
Yeah, the hardest part is if you can't get treatment. So,
yeah. Can we get on like a different topic? This is getting
something more positive.
Yeah.
Just really quickly, like a grammar nerd thing. They laid off 10% of their workforce. That is the definition of the word decimated.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that is what the word decimated means. That's like a little pet peeve of mine whenever somebody goes, oh, they decimated the company. Well, it means he brought it down by 10%. That's what it means.
Or is it to 10%?
No, it's by 10%.
By
like
only
it came
10%?
from the Roman days when, like if they lost a battle, the general would like kill every 10th soldier as punishment. That sounds fun. but that was called decimating their army.
Wow.
For losing a battle. We're going to kill 10% of you.
A bunch of you died already. Most of our team's dead, but the rest of you.
You should have died out there, but since you didn't, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. That
is so ridiculous.
Go Romans.
Oh, well, Joe, you were reading up on some fun stuff, though.
Pretty
Correct?
fun. Interesting stuff. So I got to give a little shout out to Paul Ogle Jr., who actually referred this to me about 3 hours ago before we recorded this, and I had nothing to talk about. So thanks, Paul. But no, so there's a couple of things going on right now. And the one that he referred to is what we got on screen right now is a Russian startup. So we got two different things to talk about. Basically, there's two companies that are working on what we're calling space entertainment, basically using space to create visual entertainment up in the sky. So that what's on screen right now is this Russian company, and they basically want to put billboards in space by launching a cluster or a swarm of satellites that can, unfurl these giant like solar sail type things, and then arrange themselves in patterns of logos or messages, and then just kind of, slide across the sky and bounce the sun toward whatever city they might be flying over. And then you can see a big giant McDonald's logo in space, which is what we always want. Ben does not like this idea.
No.
It'd be a great way to do a "Will you marry me" kind of thing. It is kind of like the planes with the, what do you call, it's not a plane billboard, but the
banner behind the
banner.
plane.
Yeah. It's like that, but in space.
We have a lot of those here on the beach, and it's all.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I've laughed about this for a while, but now it'll be me in a couple years, where you have the father and son, and the plane flies by with the banner, and you hear the son, "Daddy, what's Cheetahs? What is that place? Why is that girl? What is that?" You go, "Son, that's where Daddy goes when Mama's mad at him."
The strip clubs do that out there?
Yeah. Strip clubs advertise on the beaches. Or
I'm sorry, but your joke didn't quite land because I didn't think that was actually a thing.
No, it's a for real thing. And I for real heard that conversation.
Oh my word.
So I'm not looking forward to having that conversation myself with my son, but this falls into the "what could go wrong" segment.
I guess that answer is better than "that's where Daddy met Mommy."
That's a good one.
That's a good one. One notch better. And Joe, the other part of this was also, this is kind of a similar idea, but we're actually talking about this like ready to happen really, really soon.
So they're saying 2020. That's when the Tokyo Olympic Games are. Is that supposed to be part of the Olympic Games? Did I read that right?
So, so I think I know this from Tomorrow, TMRO, that one of my favorite YouTube shows about space. They actually had, I think they had this company on, the Astro Live Experience. I think that's who it was. It was. And they talked about, there was a lot of people that were confused because they thought that they were going to be doing the Olympics, and this particular company is not doing that.
Okay.
But yeah, this company's doing like shooting stars on demand, and basically you can like set a date and a time and have shooting stars appear over you. I mean,
does any of this sound too much like a simulation? Like we're literally faking shooting stars.
Yes and no. I don't think this is a million times better than the billboard idea.
Yeah.
Like this is acceptable to me, actually. The billboard is not. What do you guys, I can tell you why I think that, but I want to know your guys is like, what do you guys yay or nay on each of these? So what about like artificial meteors? What are your guys' thoughts? Yay or nay?
I'm thumbs down on it.
I like that people are thinking creatively about ways to use space in lower cost launch options. There's a part of me that says, no, space is for science and it's for serious stuff. But on the other hand, if it gets people looking up in the sky and thinking about thinking differently about space, thinking differently about how, I guess, small our atmosphere is and how tiny our planet is, and thinking about things in the big picture, if it can spur something like that, I think it's interesting. I'm conflicted. I'm very conflicted.
Yeah.
Then there's a space junk problem. The last thing we need is just frivolous stuff up there.
I'm a yes on the meteor shower thing. I'm however a no on the advertisement thing.
Yeah.
What about you guys? I know Ben's
that's
a
a
no.
very Blade Runner future, just like ads everywhere you look. Like you can't even look up at the stars without somebody.
Yeah, I hate that it's ruining one of our greatest natural resources, with ads. With the meteor thing, I think that's cool, but I just feel it's a Pandora's box kind of thing. You do that and hey, look how great. Oh, well, let's innovate on that. Let's add something here. Let's do something more. And next thing you know, there's ads. Right. So I feel like it's a little bit slippery slope, I guess would be the term.
Maybe I should also explain how these things are being done, specifically, especially the meteor shower thing is pretty interesting. They have these small, I'm going to say like washing machine sized satellites that have hundreds of these pellets in it, that it can disperse these pellets, right at a certain time, basically opposite of the planet of where they want them to re-enter at. They time it perfectly or whatever, and they have all the orbital mechanics figured out so that at an exact moment and an exact location, you might have all of a sudden dozens of shooting stars appear at once, streaking across like the entire night sky, lasting, several seconds, maybe even a full minute or something. And to me, that's super cool. It's super like it has no negative, like none of the pellet will make it to the ground. It's super temporary. It's no different, in my opinion, than a really high altitude fireworks show that can be seen for hundreds of square miles / kilometers. Like you can see it. An entire metropolis can see, imagine Dallas having one fireworks show that, normally fireworks you can only see for realistically a couple, after 5 miles, they're gone. They're over the horizon.
Explosions and wondering what the hell's going on.
Yeah. So this, you could share imagine the experience of an entire city seeing something at the exact same time. I just think it'd be cool and unifying. But the space ads thing, I think, is horrifying.
Yeah. This is the depressing part of it to me, is I feel like the night sky with the stars and everything is so awe-inspiring already. And once upon a time, you could go anywhere and look up and see just the tapestry of lights up above you. And that's why the ancient Greeks and ancient cultures were able to come up with these fantastic, mythologies around them and stuff. And then we became industrialized and we have light, and there's so few dark sky places out there where you can actually go out and experience that anymore. So what we're doing now is we're like faking it. Like we have to actually fake it now because you can't just go out and see it anymore. Like we have the Perseids and the Orionids or whatever, all the different meteor showers that we have every year, but I never see them. I go outside on those nights and I'm like, oh, cool, it's a meteor shower. And it's like, yeah, it's a plane.
Tim hits me up all the time. Hey, go look outside. ULA is having another launch. Where is it at? That's because that particular launch has been scrubbed about 10 times. That's why you're not seeing that one. I'm just saying, I don't see it.
They scrub the stars. It's just all the stars have been scrubbed, so you can't see them.
Yeah.
But doesn't that ruin a little bit of why it's special, of why it is special to be in a dark sky location, Wouldn't
it make a dark sky location even cooler? Because it's natural? Like, are you upset about...
why would I go there if I can just get it here?
But it's a temporary, like it's a thing that just goes for like a minute,
I mean, it's like the highlights. It's like the highlight reel, right? I can watch the full game or I can just watch the highlights, These are
totally different experiences to me. That's like saying, okay, man, wouldn't the movie theater totally replay? Like, doesn't that make theater worse or like,
Right. Ooh. No, that's exactly it. Do plays have lost a lot of their thing because movies? That's not a bad analogy, I would say. And it's not to say that plays don't still exist and they're not special in that. It's just saying clearly if all we had were plays, they would be much more popular. But because we have movies and that's easier to distribute and, you don't need actors every time you watch it. Like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not a fan of any artificialness about that stuff for me. That's my take on it. Could they accidentally shoot down a GPS satellite? Who knows?
No, wrong altitude.
Shouldn't, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very much wrong altitude.
Because people always do what they say they're going to do, right?
There's no way this is accidentally going up to an altitude of a medium Earth orbit. Like, there's physically impossible. Mm-hmm. No, like the rocket that they'd be carrying on would be incapable of getting them to that altitude and those inclinations and all that stuff. So no risk there. Maybe accidentally like misemploying it. And it's really hard actually to hit stuff in space, believe it or not. Like,
I saw Joe's video on Space Junk. I thought it was everywhere.
Well, Joe knows what he's talking about, so you should listen to him.
Well, how was it last time you were up there, Joe?
Last time I was in space?
Yeah.
What?
It's very quiet.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
No one can hear you scream. It's crazy.
Yeah. Fresh air.
I don't know, guys. Why is this? I don't get why this is that much different. It's so localized. It's not like everyone all the time is going to see. Like right now, if you do an app like the ISS spotter, you'll see occasionally the ISS fly overhead.
Yeah.
And it's just a point of light, but it has to be, within like an hour after sunset or an hour pre-dawn.
Right.
And that doesn't ruin the night sky to me at all. I'm like really excited. Like, oh, I get a chance to see this. I think it's really, really, really cool to do that. But I don't know. I guess if it became super normal and like every night you go out and there's 40 minutes of a show each night, but who's going to be paying for that? I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
it's still going to be expensive and cost prohibitive.
Disneyland every night, guaranteed.
Right. Exactly.
No joke. Guaranteed it would be happening every night.
Yeah.
Well, again, though, for a minute, is that really ruining anything?
To me, it's ruining what's special about looking at the stars.
How do you know it's not going to make it more special?
Yeah, I guess
Knowing
so.
that they're just there and they're
I would
just.
definitely go out and watch it if it happened. I think it would be quite a show.
And then when you see real
that
stars,
way.
you can explain to your son, like, look, those are actual stars. Those are the cool ones. These aren't.
Well, how do you know at that point?
Because one's moving really fast across the sky with a group of 200 others, and one's a virtually stationary point that you can only see in the darkest of skies, and you get to see the galaxy and everything. It's really pretty, and it's this whole experience when you're camping and you're out in Moab and you're actually going and experiencing and
when you're laying
stargazing.
in your Tesla as it's 70 degrees because you don't want to be outside. That's me. I don't do
this
camping.
is funny. I actually feel like this is opposite of what I would expect. If I were to guess, I would say that Ben, you'd be more, yeah, let's do it. So this is
it's one of those things like, I don't know, like maybe something similar that's closer to my world is the fake wave thing, the wave park that Kelly Slater came up with. It's a similar kind of discussion in the surfing world where like part of the magic of being a good surfer or pro surfer, or, whatever, is just actually dealing with the ocean and the nature of it and how insane it is to even paddle out when waves are that big because you are so powerless and people can just navigate it so gracefully and so beautifully. But when you create an artificial wave that is absolutely perfect, it's just a different thing. It's a little bit like, okay, it's not nearly as special, I guess, in that regard. And so to me, that's the same concept, I guess.
This is a very good analog because in this case, does that artificial wave make normal surfing worse? Does it ruin it for you?
It takes away from what is special about watching someone do something at a surf contest, let's say.
Right. If the viewing experience of watching someone surf on those fake waves versus watching someone do it out in the ocean is going to be different. But does it ruin your surfing? Like by someone else having a perfect wave 24/7 in Missouri, does that change your ability to enjoy yourself surfing?
No, but
I don't think someone else enjoying an artificial night sky would change their personal experience viewing a natural night sky.
Yeah, maybe not. It's one of those things where I just feel like it would become normal and common, and right now it's special.
But for me, I would love if I had a perfect wave that I could go catch 24/7, It would open up surfing to me. This might be opening up a night sky experience to people in Hong Kong.
It's like what skateboarding, night sky. It's like what skateboarding did to surfing originally, where skateboarding is a more popular sport because you can do it anywhere. Mm-hmm. Right. And it's not nearly the same thing, but it's close enough,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there it is.
I'm short on it, but we'll see. I would love to see it if it happened, of course.
Well, Joe, now that we had a back and forth, give us your final thoughts. Did any of us change
like I said, I would love to see one. I mean, to me, this kind of goes back to the Humanity Star, actually. I mean, that was sort of their idea was like, let's put something up there that people can go up and look at. And I've seen the ISS before.
Hey, and remind people what Humanity Star is, just in case.
Yeah. So it was Rocket Lab. Was that their first launch? Was that their?
It was on their first launch that
still
got
testing?
terminated, but it was also on still testing. Yeah, they had two.
Oh, okay. No, it was like basically a disco ball in space that they launched up, and it only went around for like a week or two, right? It was not up for very long, but the idea was it was this mirrored satellite that they put up into space and it orbited around the Earth. And when it passed overhead, you could look at it and it would sparkle and you could be like, hey, we're all looking at this same thing together. And it would spark people's thinking about connectedness and space and all that kind of stuff. So, and even then, like people were arguing about that one. It's going to be light pollution. It's going to be space junk. They were saying all the same things about that. And then it just kind of came and went, and most people didn't even know it existed. So, so this is probably the same thing. And I'm trying, there's got to be a word for this, and it's right on the tip of my tongue. But you know, there's hard benefits to things science-wise, and then there's the soft benefits of inspiring people and getting people's juices flowing creatively and reframing people's thoughts on our place in the universe and that kind of thing. And I think that's incredibly important. We get so like narrowed into our focus of just going through our lives that to have somebody, you know, to be able to look overhead and see something that makes us go, oh, wow, that's something new. You know, I think there is a value to that. But at the same time, there's a part of me that leans toward where Ben's going with it, and especially the whole advertising and space thing. It seems just is kind of gross. And and the point I was making earlier was just like we have kind of come to this weird place where it's like we're artificially having to create things that we once just had.
Right.
And this is just one example of that, by the way. It's all over the place, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, you know, depending on how you look at it, you could be like, it's sad that we don't just have that thing anymore. But I also like street lighting.
I was going to say, we can all make that choice. I'd prefer to not walk through dark alleys at night, but
yeah.
You haven't been to Tijuana recently. They're lovely.
Candlelit. There's lots of mimosas at night for some reason.
Just hold your $1,000 cell phone in front of you as a light. You know, that's.
By the way, do either of you guys have Apple TV?
Yes.
You do? Okay. Yeah. Ben does not. Is it the newer one where the screensavers are like the flyovers of from the ISS or whatever?
Yeah. Okay.
There's one for those who don't know, the Apple TV, when you sit there long enough, it goes to these little screensaver things, and it's these beautiful shots of there's like Dubai, New York, these mountains in China, there's the tundra and all, anyway, but some of them are satellite. There's one of them that's going over California, going south over like Baja.
Yep.
And then there's one flying over China past the Koreas and Japan at night.
Yes.
And it's fascinating to me, that one, because it starts over China. And first of all, there's like these crazy like geometric designs that are lit up in China. And I'm just like, what the hell is that? Like like one of them looks like the shape of like a stick figure. I'm like, I have to go find out what the hell this thing is. But anyway, so you're flying over China and then you go over like North Korea and it is black.
Yes.
There's like a couple of dots of light and that's it over North Korea. And then South Korea is like
super.
It's like it's on fire. It's like the whole country is on fire with all these multicolored LED lights and stuff. And I mean, I've never been to South Korea, but it's like it looks like Blade Runner. I said Blade Runner earlier. Clearly I'm on that.
Well,
but
that's
anyway,
actually what we
fascinating
did.
To me.
That's what we did for New Year's. Is we were trying to figure out where that was on Earth, because if you swipe left or right or up or down or something on the thing, it'll tell you. It'll give you a description. It says flying southeast over Mongolia is what it, like from Siberia to Mongolia. So we're like looking. We're pretty far west of the Koreas. We couldn't figure out why you can see this really strong line outlining what looked like an island. I thought it was an island with like a coastal highway or something, because it was just perfect, or, you know, like along a body of water or something. And that's why there's this really strong line. Yeah. And eventually we figured it out. Wait, that's the DMZ, the demilitarized zone between North Korea and South Korea. It is this crazy, sharp line. And once we figured it out and we realized that we're looking at North and South Korea at the end of that, our minds were all like, it was so cool. And I'm really glad that how did you figure out? Like, it took us like a group of people like 20 minutes to figure it out.
I'm just really smart, I guess. No, I don't know. I was just watching it and
we all knew that. Yep.
We all knew this.
I am actually very curious about how they shot that, because you can see like the continental shelf in the water. Like, how did they illuminate that? Like, how did they pick up that in these photographs or in this video? Anyway, sorry, that side of me kicks in and is like, how did they do that? But I don't know. I just figured it out. I was just looking at it, and like you said, that border, that DMZ is just like this perfect line. And I'm like, that can't be a coastline. And then, it just kind of, clicked in.
I'm going to try to find the picture of it.
We'll get a copyright strike for sure.
True.
Apple will send their henchmen to come get us.
So what I'm saying is, if you want a dark sky, go to North Korea.
I was going to add that I think they're big supporters of the dark sky community, apparently. No, where my dad lives in Sedona in Arizona, they have it, and it's actually incredible.
Yeah, that's it right there.
So I'm not actually going to play this. Maybe that'll help. But see that line?
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? And then, Joe, I think what you're talking about are these lines here. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but like to the up and to the left. I think those are clouds. I don't think that's the shelf.
Well, I think it's another part in there. Like once you get past Japan, you can actually like see the formations underneath the water. It may have just been clouds, but I thought that's what I was able to see.
Interesting.
Those might just be clouds, but I see what you're talking about right here. It kind of looks like,
that looks like a coastline to me.
Isn't that crazy though? So this is, there's that stick figure thing you're talking about.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Like, what is that?
What is that? Is right. So I'm sure we can figure that out.
Someone let us know. So someone let us know what that is. You guys are listening. It's a weird stick figure light thing.
When I'm working, I play Pandora downstairs, and I have this like chill out station because I'm trying to write, so I can't really listen to like lyrics. So I put this like instrumental stuff on, and it'll eventually go to that screensaver, and it works. It works really well together. The sort of like trippy chill out music with these flyovers of
whatever happened to
space.
The music like visualizer things? Do you remember that? I mean, like Windows Media Player, you could like switch it on, and it would like. I thought that was actually neat.
I'm so glad those are gone. That is so like Napster / LimeWire and Windows Media Player to me that it just makes me almost want to puke.
No, that just warms my heart though.
LimeWire was such a great computer virus delivery service.
Oh my God,
it served its job so well.
Oh, yes, it was. So space entertainment, could be a slippery slope is maybe how we'll say it. It has some potential to be really cool, has some potential to potentially make a lot of people upset. But
we need like a space force to regulate it. I just came up with that idea. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Sounds like a novel idea.
Maybe we could build a wall around space.
Ooh.
And
that makes sense.
I
think there is one.
Because gravity's not a good enough one yet. Gravity in the atmosphere being very difficult. Yeah. Screw that.
Space asylum seekers, keep them out.
Well, are you guys working on any exciting videos?
You go, Joe.
Okay, apparently not.
Nope.
I got one on Monday about fuel cells.
Ooh.
Fuel cell vehicles.
Oh, right.
Comparing them to electrics and gas.
I just heard about an article. The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe talked about how a study showed that using hydrogen purely as a stationary, like what's that called? What is it called when it's in the loop or like on the grid? Sorry, there we go. Like a grid storage solution, that hydrogen is actually worse still than lithium ion.
But lithium ion is super limited in comparison. I'd be curious to see the video. I think it's interesting. Like the fuel cell, the hydrogen energy density per kilogram is pretty high, I think.
Yeah.
Right. But the cost of like harvesting it is also extremely high, I think is the problem, right? And then for a car,
you chisel away a lot of losses until there's not much left.
Yeah. We'll I'll go watch your video, Joe. And then
are you getting into that specific thing? Like you actually comparing like hydrogen storage versus lithium? Really?
Not really the storage so much, but I look at the losses along the way from like charging losses. I was actually asking Ben about phantom loss and his data, loss over the grid of electrical current and whatnot. Not to spoil anything, but fuel cells work at about 60% efficiency, converting the energy from hydrogen into energy like forward motion. Which of course is better than the 23 or so % that internal combustion engines have. So, I mean, it still is better. But anyway, I go through all that and I use a lot of math and I'm sure a lot of people will disagree with, but
of course I
used the best sources I could. And I did the best, punching in of numbers on my phone.
It's a tough thing to figure out. Yeah.
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 Well, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can interpret it, and this was my particular interpretation, and we'll see how many people get triggered by it. But
what about you, Ben?
Yeah.
Man, I've just been a video creating machine this week.
You have been lately.
I think if you count this right now as one of the videos, this is my 6th video I've recorded this week already. Nice. So we just hit 1 year in our Model 3. And so that was a big thing. So I've got 3 videos related to that coming out. So stay tuned for all of those. I had a good chat with Kim from Like Tesla earlier, just before we hopped on the phone here, about customer service with Tesla and how that's kind of a big deal. So we've got that coming out. And have just a lot more fun stuff coming on. There will be a lot of fun videos coming out from CES. My friend Dan from What's Inside has a really cool one coming out soon about some wild stuff we did with his Tesla Roadster. So yeah, this is like it's the opposite of what you should do to like make the most money on YouTube, because that's like the holiday season is when you should be posting. But for me, I don't know why I get fired up in January. So yeah, lots of stuff coming out. And then I'm going on a surf trip tomorrow to Mexico. So I'll be off the grid for a few days.
Nice. It's exciting. Cool. We'll stay safe.
Of course. What about you, sir?
Yeah. So on Saturday, I'm releasing a video where there's a YouTuber / Kerbal space program player named Matt. I found it was pronounced Lown. Whoops. I thought it was Lone. I said it wrong in the video, so I'm gonna have to like maybe overdub it or whatever. But anyway, like we collaborated. He does a series called Blunderbirds, where he takes people's, like, say you crash a spaceship on like the moon or on another planet on Kerbal. He'll come and rescue those people, like those missions. I think it's a really fun series. And so I challenged him. Like I set up this like clause that my Kerbals heard that they wanted to take a Saturn V, so the biggest rocket, and launch it. You know, I told them to send it to the moon, but they heard launch it from the moon. So I actually sent a Saturn V, strapped 1 billion rockets to it, flew it to the moon. So there's still a full Saturn V on the moon. And then he went to go rescue it. And that's like our collaboration together. And so
it's a multiplayer thing?
It's not.
Oh.
So I had to send him like the save file.
Oh, okay.
And then he could upload my like craft and all that stuff. And yeah.
Got it. So this isn't like World of Warcraft for space nerds.
No, not
Someone
really,
needs to make that, though. Imagine.
There's mods actually that allow you to do multiplayer Kerbal like that. Yeah.
Yeah, StarCraft.
Yeah, StarCraft.
See how much
like a fighting game. Yeah, so that'll be a lot of fun. That's going to be a little different. I've had a lot of people asking me to do more Kerbal. A lot of people also really mad at me whenever I do play Kerbal. So we're going to see who wins this one. I love it. This is going to be a fun one for me. I had a ton of fun playing it. But also I'm working on a comparison of all the rides to the International Space Station. I don't remember if we talked about that last week, but that's still in my pipeline. So the Boeing CST-100 Starliner and the Atlas V rocket versus the Falcon 9 rocket and the Dragon 2 capsule versus the Soyuz capsule and Soyuz rocket. So those are our 3 rides to space, hopefully by the end of the year. So I'm going to do a full rundown on what it'd be like to ride on any of them, which benefits and all these other hootenannies and whatnots.
Hootenannies and whatnots.
Yeah. So hopefully I'll have that out. I don't know. I haven't even started scripting that, but that's going to be a thick, heavy topic. So yeah.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Think we did it, guys.
We did number 17.
17.
Dang.
She's only
17.
We can watch R-rated movies now.
It is. I was trying to think of like, what can you do when you're at 17 that you can't? Oh yeah, there's R-rated.
And in Iowa, you can get your full driver's license. 16 is like a kind of initial driver's license, but you're a little bit limited, I think. So there you go.
We're still underage is what it comes down to.
Yeah. But next week.
That's it.
Next week we'll be able to work at Cheetahs.
That's
a callback, folks.
There's the lead story. Beautiful.
There it is.
Cool. Well,
thank you guys well, hold on. Let's make sure people know. Remember, our outros have to be bad. So let us know if you guys have any ideas for Why Don't They Just? And while you're at it, be sure and leave us some comments and tell a friend and all that jazz. You know, the
Follow
stuff.
us at all our places.
we just hit 10,000 subscribers, by the way, on YouTube. Pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, did we?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So thank you if
Yeah,
you're
I
watching.
did shout us out in my video last week, so that's probably it.
See,
That's probably all
there
it
you go. That's it. 100%.
helps.
We were at 0 before that, so thank you.
was. You're welcome.
Thanks, guys. Well,
We will see you
guys in
our ludicrous future.
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 Oh, man, I missed
future.
We always got to ruin it, Joe.